Look, when you're a business owner, you take way more stress on. It's become less and less favourable from a tax perspective. I think historically, you could put way more into pensions. Dividend taxes have massively gone up. Where before we were much more incentivised from a tax perspective to be a business owner, that's been taken away, and they've slowly moved it towards being more like an employee. We live in a world where it's just made to want you to buy everything. So it's really hard. And then you've got social media, and the social media saying, buy that, you need this. And, I hear people say, oh, I need this. And I need that. Do you need it? It's not going to make you any happier. So being very conscious about where you're spending your money.
You've grown up in a financial advice business and family. If you cast your mind back to when you were, let's say, 25, how has your perception of wealth changed in that time?
I was a lot more selfish. I was a lot more thinking in terms of wealth that it was about a number, it was about being rich. And actually what I've noticed as I've got older and I have accumulated more material wealth or money, should we say, that actually doesn't change anything really. There is, of course, a certain amount where you feel things are comfortable and that's nice. Those early years where you're sort of struggling for money. I'm lucky I don't have that situation anymore, and you can buy things and holidays. But yeah, the way it's changed now is actually realizing it's more to do with wealth is sort of being able to say no to things. Yes, being able to do the things you want to do, but look, there's always, if you add another zero on something, you always want that bigger house, that nicer car. So just realizing that wealth is, spending time with people that you enjoy, whether it's work, whether it's family, and having a bit more agency and control over your own life as well. So yeah, there are a couple of areas I would say on how it's changed. And I'm always really aware of, I don't want to, I'm going to be 40 this year, and probably I'm at that kind of age, but I've always been someone that I think a lot, and I don't want to get to a certain age and think, oh, I've wasted my life, or man, I was just chasing that money and it didn't bring me any happiness. But it's difficult. It's the age-old thing. Everyone wants to have wealth, don't they? Money especially.
Yeah, well, it's a blunt instrument. It's what we use as a measurement of success, but it's a terrible measure of success, I think. Do these conversations translate into the conversations that you have with your clients as well? Because typically speaking, they would either be high net worth individuals or people that are accumulating wealth.
To start with, well, what are your real objectives here? And if you're talking, as you say, about someone with money and say their retirement planning, it's like, what do you want to do in your retirement? Is it, or when you do retire, what do you want to do? Do you want to be traveling more? Do you want to be spending time with family rather than just hit a number or have a certain amount in the bank? Because inevitably, and what I find with clients is they end up then with a massive inheritance tax problem anyway, and then they stress about that, right? The money people worry about all the time. And again, probably is quite a natural human instinct. But actually, one thing I really like is how Dana White talks about money. I don't know if you ever heard him, but he says, I've never really been that attached to the money itself. He says, I see it as a tool to have fun. And I think that's a really healthy way of being, at the same time, not to be frivolous with money, right? Because plenty of people don't do the very basic things to just make sure that you're comfortable.
Yeah. What was your journey into financial advice? I
was working in the corporate world. I was working for Bloomberg. I was there for about 5 years. A great experience. I traveled a lot. I was in the Italian team and moved around various asset classes, etc. I got to the point where I realized I didn't want to be there any longer. I probably always knew I wasn't going to be there forever anyway. There was a mixture of things that were great about it. Like there were lots of young, ambitious people. There were some terrible managers, of which I had one of the worst at one point towards the end.
What did they do? What were they like?
Well, they just, essentially what actually happened was he wanted one of his friends, I think wife, to have my job.
Okay.
And
is that in Italy?
He was, I was in England, but he was Italian, yes. And yes, because it sounds, I've got Italian blood, so I can say it. It sounds quite Italian, doesn't it? He just wasn't a very nice person. And he'd done this thing where he'd turn on someone within the team. So it was a sales team. I was second in the team in terms of number of sales, even though I had one of the worst regions.
Right.
And yet he sort of turned to me and was trying to get me out of the team. And then me being very strong-willed, worked out a way and spoke to some people and told me about how I could actually prove what I was doing. And I came up with this whole sort of spreadsheet and proving what I was doing. And then he really struggled. But look, it just got to the point where I didn't want to be there anyway. He was making my life a bit of a nightmare. And so, you know, coming back to then, I think your question was, how did I get into to financial planning? Was I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to various job interviews and what have you. And then I just had a moment where I thought, you know what, I can go ask my dad if I can go and work for him. At this time, advisors were self-employed. So I'll be totally self-employed. I do whatever I want and then I'll take it from there. But that will give me the opportunity to find out what I really want to do and set up my own business. I've really always wanted to run a business. And here I am 11 years later actually running the business. So I didn't envisage it happening like this.
But how did that journey of the 11 years actually look then? So you went to work there as an independent, self-employed financial advisor, but it was your dad's business.
Yeah.
You're now the owner of the business.
Yeah.
How's that journey sort of unfolded?
Yeah. So when I initially joined, it was kind of that here's a desk, get on with it, because I was self-employed, and that was just the way the model worked. I've never had a problem working hard. I was already in finance. I was qualified with the IMC, the investment management certificate, not as an advisor. So from that perspective, I felt comfortable, the sales side as well. But there wasn't sort of a client bank to go and sit down and talk to. So I had to be very proactive and ask a lot of questions. So I would just go and speak to my father a lot and my brother, who was already in the business, and just learn from them all the time and then just work hard. And so over quite quickly, we saw it was going to work. And because I had no money coming in unless I was bringing business in, I had to really throw myself into it. So that first year, I took the fewest number of days holiday I've ever taken, because I was just head down. I was working weekends every now and again, not all weekends, every weekend, but I was working hard. So then what I also saw when I was there was, wow, we're doing some things in this business are missing. Right, we're not working as a team. We're all individuals. Modernization, these kind of things, and so I would just go and speak to my dad and say, "Look, have you thought of doing this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that?" Probably got a bit much at some points because obviously I'm family as well. I didn't have those natural inhibitions you might do with a business owner.
Yep.
And I am very strong-willed, and if I've got an idea, I'll keep going for it. So I would come to him with ideas. And he was pretty open-minded to most of them, and we made a lot of changes. And also, as I say, because I had that direct access in a small business, what's fantastic is you can speak, like, you don't need to be family, right? You can speak to the senior people there and learn directly from them, and that is the best way of being successful, of learning, growing. So yeah, throughout time, we saw a lot of changes. We moved into a new office just before COVID.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so we moved in, and then on, I think, the Friday, and that was that weekend that we had the lockdown.
Wow.
So we were going to have the mayor come and all of that, and suddenly we had to close the office after a year of refurbing.
And you're paying rent on that as well for that period, right?
So yeah, so this was, my dad was obviously owned the business at this point. He actually owns the building.
Okay.
So he paid rent to himself through his pension. Obviously, being a financial planner,
okay.
he worked a clever way of doing it. But still, you're paying all your taxes and council taxes and rates that other businesses locally got a load of money. They got, I think it was £25,000 back then.
Okay.
We didn't get that. So yeah, it was difficult. I mean, we're very fortunate in terms of a business model that people now, the way we work, so it changed from when I started. We have people paying an ongoing fee, and that's where pretty much, well, that's really where all our clients are.
Yeah.
And so even with a lockdown, we have money coming, and we have people that need help, right? So if you're retired, you still need your income.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people, I know a lot of people struggled in COVID, but there were a lot of people who built up a lot of cash because they weren't doing anything.
You see the business now as like a startup culture.
Yeah.
How has that changed, and how did you manage that evolution as well?
Yeah, so the way it's changed was it was run as a very profitable business. If we just rewind a second, we think we have advisors working. Really, it was mainly my dad and my brother as advisors, and a few administrators who were all part time. So you can see here it was quite fractioned, and it worked, right? It was a successful business. Suddenly, you think you go forward, making this a modern business. Well, we need to work as a team, right? What is a company? It's a group of people gelled together with a culture, and so that was a big thing. Working on the culture and realizing that actually it's not just about maximizing what we can get out as business owners. It's like anything, right? If you're just trying to maximize what you get out of something for personal gain, first of all, it's not going to be as enjoyable. But second of all, people are going to feel that. So what we've done is work really hard on the culture and improving, paying people what they're worth or maybe a bit more. Just number one, people want to be employed, and now in the industry and generally.
Okay.
So not having self-employed advisors, improving benefits, holiday. I wanted to get private health, and for me, I just didn't feel comfortable getting it for myself and saying for everyone else, yeah, guys, I've got private. Well, I didn't have to tell them, right? But it just felt off for me. So being quite values led and looking after people and also just small things like realizing people are having an off day, like asking them, are you all right? And then, because then you build trust. But when I say build trust, not in a selfish way of, well, now they trust me and I'll get more out of them. That will be a benefit, but it's actually more enjoyable as a result. And then I had, not so long ago, one of my staff members actually say to me, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, why? They sent a message. So I just saw that, see, you seem a bit off today and you're always asking me. And I was like, wow. Like when you hear those kind of things, you realize the culture is really coming through. It's not me or us projecting it as owners, it's coming through. So but modernizing the firm in general and that startup mentality is, not being afraid to fail. I've probably got a bit of a thing myself about failing. But actually, I think it was Elon Musk. There's apparently said if you're not failing 20% of the time, you're not trying enough things.
Interesting.
And we've got that real thing about let's have lots of ideas. Most of them aren't going to work. You think of Amazon, Google, 3M. I think the Post-it note came through people just having ideas, right? So you talk about a Post-it note, we all know that would have made such a large amount of money. AWS, from Amazon, all these things that they go through, companies like that, billions before they get to one idea that works, and that's all you need.
Who comes up with the ideas in the business?
Yeah, really good point. So we encourage ideas. So we've had, at the moment, we're doing, so once a month we sit down, we've got one this week, a business meeting with everyone in the business, so all staff, and we get them to pitch one idea.
Do you?
Yeah. So
everyone has to pitch something.
Yeah, so we swap it round, so not everyone every time. And it could be anything. It could be something as silly as we're not doing our recycling properly. But, it could be, one of the last ones was for us, and we'll probably come on to some of this, but we know most wealth sits with older people, right? Sort of 55 plus. And then if you look at client banks, especially in our industry, they tend to be older. That's where the wealth sits.
Yeah.
So you've got two issues here. Number one, as a business, we got risk because those people get older. But number two, what I've noticed that clients really value is knowing that their children, their beneficiaries are going to be looked after and that the money's not going to be squandered away.
Yeah.
And so someone pitched the idea of how about we involve and somehow, well, there were some ideas around it, get the beneficiaries engaged with us. And of course, these are younger people, so the way to attract those people is very different from those older people. And so that's where being a modernized firm helps with that. So yeah, that was just one idea, but we do this every month. And I think actually most ideas we've had so far in that business meeting, at least, we've run with. But
that must be quite nice actually for the employees to like not just get knocked back and rejected, being like, do you know what, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Because I think that like, I'm an ideas person. I've got my Apple
Yeah.
Notes is full of
Yeah.
like brainstorms and ideas, but working for a big corporate, it's very difficult to be able to like go to someone and then it to be taken seriously and then produced into something. So often you just feel like a little bit deflated by the fact that your ideas aren't actually going anywhere, and they almost fall on deaf ears. But if you're encouraging people and you're like, do you know what, that sounds like a good idea, do you say you run with it, or do you collectively try to implement it?
Depends. So often we will say, yeah, you run with it, or we'll oversee it. But, you know, with that beneficiary idea, I got them to do quite a bit. I've then, you know, passed some of it over to the marketing team in terms of the material. So no, we will let them run with it. We give them a lot of kudos for it. And even if we didn't run with the idea, we'll give them the kudos just for thinking of an idea. So that's not the only means of doing it. We've got, and I think that's really important, right? And that's kind of like that startup mentality as well. And that's a really important point around the layers. What you typically find in bigger businesses is there are so many layers. These ideas, great ideas by people in the day-to-day get lost. So in our support team, we've got Lee, and she's, you know, essentially an administrator, operations kind of side of things. She's incredible administrator. And she's also very creative, and she has so many ideas. I remember the first time I sat down with her, and we spent about an hour and a half just talking about ideas. There were too many to implement. But the fact that she and the rest of the team feel they can do that kind of thing means that, again, I think sometimes also it's just being aware of, let's try some of them. We can't do this all now. What's the low-hanging fruit? What's this thing to run with for now? We can maybe come back to those other things. Because if you're doing too much at once, you get lost, it detracts from the main part of the business. But it is really important to keep evolving, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
Did you always see, you said that you went into the corporate world first of all, but like, did you always see yourself running a business, and did you actually see it being your family business? And how did your dad see it? Did your dad also have in his head, like, there's a natural succession in the family?
So as I started to get sort of in my 20s, I was, and certainly mid-20s, really, really interested in business, reading books, watching programs on turnaround in businesses. So I've always had that real interest. From the perspective of the family, my dad never had, or at least never told us, but I don't think he ever did, any expectation. I think to some degree he didn't want to put that pressure on us to think, you go out in the world and do your own thing. And originally, so my brother, who's my business partner, decided he really wanted to work in film when he was younger than me. But he sort of pitched it to my dad, and my dad sort of offered him something to make it work. And similarly with me, I when I went to have a conversation, I didn't know. I actually spoke to my brother first, and he was like, oh, you could do this thing within the business, that might work. And then he actually went and spoke to my dad, and then I arranged a meeting with my dad. But he at the time just said, look, I don't know if it will work. Bearing in mind I was self-employed, bearing in mind we had no model of someone like me coming on within the business. So my brother came in much more junior. So he came in as an administrator. So it was like, well, you can be an administrator and that's how you can help. With me, I was already at a certain level in my career, a bit older. So me coming on, working into an advisor was a little bit different. So yeah, there was no expectation. I don't know. I'm not sure. To be honest, I think my dad's self-made, right? In terms of he set up the business himself. He left school when he was 16. So I think he always it was very head down in terms of making sure he was, successful himself. And this is probably that part of that thing of what I know we've had some other discussions about. Business owners don't always think about the bigger picture, even though obviously he does is a financial planner. But again, the profession's changed so much. I mean, when he started out, he was knocking on people's doors, selling them savings policy. Yeah. So that's a very different world from where we are today.
A lot of the wealth in the UK right now is stored within that 60 plus generation, and so we're seeing more and more people coming to us now who are looking to exit in some capacity.
Yeah.
They might want to sell the business because it's their retirement. That that comes up quite a lot. But sometimes, there is nobody to sell it to. It could be
Yeah.
the existing team. It could
Yeah.
be the kids. And I think that we're in an era now where more of the younger generation want to be independent. So I
Yeah.
think that maybe beforehand, like, people would have gone through the family business and it would
Yeah.
have carried down a few generations. Whereas now,
Yeah.
people want to go to university, they want their own independence. And so we've got this almost like trap where people have invested all of their life into building a business.
Yeah.
They're now getting to the tail end of their life, or at least their working life, and there's no plan for what comes next.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, this was where, even in my own experience with the, the business I'm in, that I was always asking my dad, like, what is your plan? Just again, because I like strategy and I'm thinking, and he was getting older and he hadn't really thought too much, and he had to keep thinking and come up with a plan. And yeah, I see it with clients as well, where and also people are worried, right? You spend your whole life building a business.
Yeah.
And also, I think you get to that 60, 70 years old, and you suddenly, wow, I'm at the tail end, in theory, of your life, right? You're getting older. It suddenly happened, and because you haven't necessarily had anyone guiding you there, and the reason your business has been successful is because you've been very focused on it. So it is a difficult area. I mean, what I would say is that this presents a massive opportunity for people. So there's a common narrative out there that everyone should be an entrepreneur and everyone should set up a business. And by the way, that's amazing. That's fantastic. But actually, first of all, you don't need to necessarily set up a business, because I think 35% of businesses are set up and run by 50 plus people, people age 50 plus.
Oh, okay.
So when you think about that, you think about what we were saying, where the wealth lies. There are so many businesses out there that people are looking to exit, but they don't know how. So they don't know how, but also these are people who are towards the end of their career. They're smaller businesses, and so there's so much opportunity to modernize them. So if you have younger people coming in, they can, prove themselves, work hard. They can learn from these people who've got loads of experience, and then you've got the opportunity. And I've actually got a client who, she set up the business, I think, with a business partner, and she went through an MBO, which is what we've going through, which is where you buy out the existing owners. And this works well for if someone who's in the business particularly, and obviously if you're going to take over, you're going to want to be within the business. But it means that there are different ways you negotiate the price. Sometimes you don't even need to put any money down for it. You can pay these people off through the profit in the business, right? And you can still have them there guiding you if that's wanted or needed. So that's a massive opportunity that most people just don't realize is out there. There are different things you can do, as you know as well. But yeah, it's definitely really important to think about this and have a plan. And, obviously this is partly where a financial planner is involved. This would be the thing about financial planning, though. Often people focus just on your personal wealth, where actually you want to be able to say to these people, have you thought about how you're going to exit the business? Have you thought about all these other things, rather than just, you've got a pension and some investments here, right? Because that's the holistic planning, and that's what gives people the peace of mind, right?
You mentioned there about negotiating the price. Did your dad negotiate hard with you?
So yeah, it's an interesting story. It took us 1.5 years to come to something.
Did it?
Yeah. So between, I think, the initial conversations to the end, again, some of this would have probably been because there hadn't been a long-term plan with it. Originally, and so he wanted to go out and explore different ideas. He then said, right, you guys, we were involved in the very initial stages of what he was potentially looking at. He even then started saying, I'll sort of I'll gift you the business, you'll have it. Not that we're expecting it. And by the way, I think that's just another really important point. Like, when people expect things or you feel entitled to it, that's not a great place to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he went away and did his own thing, and I kept saying, do you not think maybe we should discuss and have a chat? And he's like, no, you crack on with stuff, and I've been advised that you shouldn't, blah, blah. So eventually came back with something, and I was not happy with it at all. And look, this
So how
is where,
far apart were you?
one extreme probably to
Really?
another. Yeah. And that's what I found. I think that's why it was difficult. And when I say it was difficult, obviously the big thing was it was a family. When you're external parties, you don't have the emotion. I mean, if you think about the complexity of this, of someone who's, first of all, when you set up a business and run it for all those years, and it's 43 years we've been in business now. Yeah. It was obviously less then, but it becomes like your baby.
Of course, yeah.
So there's that to it. But then there's also, it was his business. He was our manager. He was our dad. So
Yeah.
to then have me and my brother sort of sit down and negotiate with him, it's difficult, and my brother and I spent a lot of time thinking about how to say things and what to do. And because we're a small business as well, there was only really us there. So yeah, it took a long time. As I say, there's a lot of emotion because of the family aspect, but eventually we got to somewhere we're really happy with. And we got a good deal, but and we didn't want it to be, from our perspective, unfair. But like anything, it's a negotiation. So it's like, you talk about what's a house worth. Well, it's what someone will pay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we knew also that we were so heavily involved in the business that we, at that point, although we hadn't been there all the years and it was his, we were quite a large part of the value in there, or at least that's what we believed.
It's interesting because you've actually lived through this. So when you're sitting down with clients, I'm guessing that you're able to go from an experience of someone who's been through this journey, like with your dad, and you've seen, what it meant, but also what your clients are also, that they're attributing their value to something, and it's often a number. If you're looking to exit, right, you say the business is worth X, and that is a symbol of my worth.
Yeah.
And how do we then come to an agreement which is something that you're actually comfortable with for the rest of your life? Because that's the big conversation that we have with clients. It's like, sure, your business could be worth 20 million, but what if you only need 12 million?
Yeah.
And then that really sort of like shape the way that they negotiate, because it's the 20 million could be a number that somebody just gave them once. Oh, it's worth that.
Yeah.
Well, is that achievable? What does the actual earn-out structure of that look like? Is it private equity going to come in and they're going to try and knock you at the end?
Yeah.
Is it an earn-out deal where if the revenue starts to decline whilst the other people are in charge, then you won't get paid on the full amount? So in an ideal world, you want more cash up front.
Yeah.
So could you afford to take a bit less cash up front?
Yeah.
Because that's actually going to be all you need for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing for a business owner who's built a business to sort of come to terms with, because it is their self-worth and it is also their baby.
Yeah, massively. And I think that was one of the things, and I even discussed with my father, I said, I kind of feel like for you, the number you get is like you feeling like you've got your success. And it goes back to that question around what's wealth. And again, I mean, in our industry, there are, like you said, a lot of PE firms around, and what they do, and other firms that are buying out other firms, is they often, a bit like the house, and another house analogy is you get 5 estate agents over. A lot of them will just say it's worth more, so they win your business, and then they'll drop the price down, right? And that's what happens within businesses. And I know, I network, and I've done various things, business planning sessions with other business owners and senior people, and one of them said to me, look, quite a big firm. So I probably shouldn't tell you this, but what we do is we just wear them down. So they offer something, they wear them down, they end up not paying. I mean, you probably know this because you're in the industry, but so many people are promised something, they don't end up getting it. And we're looking to buy businesses, and when we do, we're just very frank with them. First of all, just my values and our values as people is, I just want to be more straight talking. I don't want to, if I say I'm going to offer you that, I want to be able to offer it to you, so we need to get all the clients over. I don't want those clients to fall away. I don't want you losing the clients and us. And so what I'm saying is you hear the sort of big numbers and you think, right, wow, and you anchor yourself on that. But again, it's the actual psychology of it, of why do you want that money? What is it for? And actually, would you be happier with not having the stress of dealing with these really aggressive firms and trying to not pay you the money, and also knowing that your business, your clients are actually going to get looked after afterwards? And that then, like, for example, my dad, before we actually signed, a number of months before, he didn't even set foot in the office.
Really?
And how do you put a value on that? He just didn't need to worry. And he had, unfortunately, the day the deal went through, had a health scare and a health problem. And for him, that just meant he never had to come back to the office again. And how do you put, to me personally, I just think, how do you put a value on that? Now, if that had been with an external company, that would have really ruined the deal.
Of course, yeah.
Whereas with us, we were already there with the business. Didn't really matter too much. There was stuff where we're finding our feet going, what's this and what's that? But, there's always going to be an element of that anyway.
What do you think is harder, starting a business from scratch or going into an established business and buying that?
So first of all, I've never started a whole business from scratch, so I can't talk from experience. I can say that, for example, when I started, it was like I had to start my own mini business of clients and find out what I was doing, and any element of sales and any of my jobs. And generally people know when you're doing cold sales, you have to build a bit of a business. So that's not the same as building a company, though. I think that both are hard. Running a business is just hard. I mean, the advantage to starting from scratch is you have a blank piece of paper and you go, right, I'm going to do it like this and I'm going to do it my way. And you've got nothing to lose, really. Yes, you have something to lose in that if you've got no money and you don't earn any money, but, and especially you'll probably go out and find something else anyway. So the difference being when it's an established business is you've got that pressure of, right, I've got this business. First of all, there are all these things which are not my way of doing them.
Yep.
They're the managing people that are used to working in a different way. Yeah, people don't like change. And all the systems, and it works because the business is profitable, but actually you can see that if we make all these changes, we're just going to get rocketed up. So making the changes is very difficult. And as I say, you've got that element of, right, wow, we can't mess this up. This is a very well-established business, but at the same time, we want to make this our own. We want to take it to the next level. So I think both are very difficult. Any kind of business is difficult. Either way, you're going to have to work super hard. And it depends what you want to achieve, right? You could just take over a business and just let it trundle along. Long term, if you don't make any changes, we've seen the businesses that don't evolve. Yeah, the sort of Woolworths, Blockbusters, all those, they don't exist anymore, right? So yeah, I think that they're both difficult. They present their own opportunities and own challenges as well. Yeah.
What is that? Are the people that are there today, are they different to what they were at the start? Because you said there about people don't like change.
Yeah.
But you've come in, you've had to make changes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've naturally had a change in staff because we were making so many changes. We already started when we moved into the new office. I mean, when we moved to the new office, some of the staff members were so worried about it. They were sort of almost panicking about just changing from 10 minutes up the road.
Why?
They just didn't like change. And we were
Really?
saying, but they were saying, where will we park? Well, there's a car park and we don't, so you just park there. And it's just the unknowns, right? That's the kind of mentality and how different it was then to what it is today. And we barely, if any, have any of those existing staff members other than me and my brother. And that's been quite natural because if you've got this kind of startup mentality, that's clearly not going to align well with people who are of an older age that don't want to do. That doesn't mean you can be in an older age and into that kind of thing, but typically you're not, especially if you're part-time as well. And so naturally, the overall age of the staff members has come down. And also we found that it's easier to mold people when they're younger. They've got higher energy, they've got more ambition, so they're more aligned to what we're looking to do. You do need experience within a company though as well. So yeah, we've seen those changes come through, and within that, the people change as well.
I saw a statistic the other day, like the number of financial advisors under the age of 30 is really low.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
like less than 5% or 10% or something, isn't it? And then you've
Yeah.
got those that are between 30 and 40, but the majority
Yeah.
of people of advisors actually sit again towards that older.
Yeah.
Do you think it's an exciting time to be coming into the industry? And I think that sort of exciting with also the looking at that through the lens of everyone's fearing AI, right? So how is that going to disrupt
Yeah.
industries? Is it going to make financial planning
Yeah.
easier, harder?
Yeah.
Is it going to disrupt it, take their jobs,
Yeah.
etc.? Do you see the industry right now as a place where if you were 25 years old, you would go into it?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is one of the most exciting times ever. So, first of all, the average age of an advisor believes about 59.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, look, again, various studies, but sort of show the next 5 to 10 years, almost half of those are either thinking or going to retire. Going back to everything we've been discussing, what does that mean? That means that they're probably quite comfortable where they are. They're not going to be pushing forwards. There's going to be such an opportunity because they got client banks, and we've had conversation. We continue to with some of these people, and you look at the way they operate their businesses. They love their clients, their people, but actually there's so much they're not doing, and so it's very easy to make a lot of improvements. So that with those statistics still being people getting older generally within the business, within the industry, it just provides a massive opportunity for young people. And then you've got, as you say, AI coming and things like that. I mean, look, it's never been easier to learn things. There's so much free content out there. I mean, things like this podcast, it's relatively new, right? But there's so much content and so many different forms where you can learn so much. You don't even need to go to a university. You can learn it all online. So you can learn from others, where a lot of these conversations would be having had behind closed doors. You know, you and me may grab a coffee, and what's going on with you. It's just out there in the
Yeah,
public.
it's a really good point actually.
Yeah,
Everyone's airing it now, so you
yeah,
can understand the way people are thinking, what
yeah,
people are talking about. Like this podcast started almost as like a pub chat, like when
yeah,
you're in the pub and you're talking about business or you're talking
yeah,
about your career. Well, now you can put it out there for everyone to listen to. It's free. It's just there.
yeah. It's amazing, and you know, you think a lot of people say they want mentors, right? You don't actually need a mentor you necessarily have a personal relationship with, and especially for people that are earlier on or can't find those people. They're out there. They're out there online. They're in
Yeah, so
books,
true.
just on LinkedIn or whatever social media. You can find these people, and they're giving out amazing tips. And I've learned so much personally from doing this and looking at the content. It's great to have you know, the human connection and find other people as well if you can as well. But I wouldn't worry about it. Just there's so much content out there. So yeah, there is such an opportunity. I think with, you know, talking more specifically about AI, I feel, you know, humans have slowed to adopt technology. So AI is, in terms of tech, moves so fast, right? It's been around for a bit. We're very much at the beginning of that journey. We're also awful at predicting the future. Everyone likes to think we know what's going to happen with AI and it's going to do this and it's take over the world. Yeah, well, it looks like it's going to have, and it is having a massive impact, and it's really important to adopt it and to test it. So, for example, we've got an AI champion. We test it out. We use some things, we don't. But I feel at the moment it's very early. And so a lot of it doesn't work that well, and actually how much does it help versus detract from a business. But you want to and you need to embrace it and embrace these things. Otherwise, again, you're going to get left behind. I think also whilst AI, so you can go online, right? And for example, in our industry, you can do stuff on your own. I mean, most people don't actually end up doing that well. But some people do, and some people do fine. And we're not for everyone, financial planners. But what is really important, and again, talking about content and things, creating personal brands, right? People buy into people. Really good example. I think I mentioned to you the other day, Batch London, who you had on the podcast. So I came across them through your podcast, and then I started following them, and I just love their story and how they're telling it and what they're doing. And I just got really excited. I mean, I love business. It's a passion of mine. As we say, we help business owners. And I was just like, I love that journey. And they actually sent me a message saying, you should come along, have a look at our suits. And I was like, I'm actually okay. And then as I've been following their journey, I'm like, now I want one. So that's the power of personal branding.
Yeah.
AI can't do all of that personal branding. You feel like you know these people. Even though I've never met them physically.
Such a good point, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't actually physically met. I know we've had calls until today. So it's all through personal branding, really, isn't it, that we've met as well. So, and in a time where you've got AI, it's even more important. And I feel like we've got this window of opportunity. Again, now I'm going into predicting what's going to happen with AI, but, we can see that it's going to have a big impact one way or another. That in this window of opportunity, you want to get your personal brand out there.
Yeah.
So then people are buying into you and they're feeling great. Like the Batch London example, it's like you want to go there and spend your money and feel good. And that's something that we have done in our business. So going back to kind of this startup mentality, and I used another analogy with you on one of our calls about how with my wife, she wanted to have an iPad, but she wanted for a present. I think it was a birthday, and I'm not an Apple person, but my whole experience there was so incredible that I left there spending a lot of money, and I was happy about it. And I'm not always...
That's crazy when they can make you happy about parting with your cash.
And then she said, I want a laptop for whatever it was next Christmas. And I was like, yeah, I can't wait.
Because they wanted to connect.
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, what have they done here? And so being aware of what those experiences are and what they've done is actually there was no AI involved in that,
so
right?
True, yeah.
And so what we've become really big on is client experience, putting the client first. Very important to look after your staff, which we've sort of touched upon, but if you've got no clients, you haven't got business.
Yeah.
And so again, we want people when they walk in the office to have this really amazing experience. We have special china cups, we've got a special coffee machine, we've got a barista service, we've got a menu. We're in an old bank, and we've got the old vault room, and it's really nice. So people come in then, and they have this really amazing experience. Then they feel much more comfortable having that discussion about their finances, and everything's just made a bit more seamless and easy. So you overcome a lot of those barriers. And I think, again, so this is just so important to give people this amazing experience.
You mentioned there about the small things that you do, the china cups. I was actually in a restaurant last night, and when it came to desserts, I was like, do you know what? I will look at the dessert menu. And there was bread and butter pudding on there. And I've not had that for 20 years. My grandparents used to cook it. And I was like, oh my God, there's bread and butter pudding. I've not had it for such a long time. And then they served it in a really old school, like china. It was basically something that my grandparents would have had, a piece of crockery that my grandparents would have had. And I was like, wow, like you've served me something that was very nostalgic in a very nostalgic bowl.
Yeah.
And that brought back so many memories. That's a small touch.
Yeah.
But somebody has thought about that. That didn't just happen naturally. That's happened by design. I'm a massive fan of Rory Sutherland, and he talks about this, like the behavioral economic side of things. So how can you make the experience just so much better for people? Often that's what it is, but I think that some of these big businesses, they overlook that. Sometimes you become a number. Like I used to work for a company you're probably quite aware of called Transact. But like they had a thing which was pick up the phone within 3 rings. It's very simple. But like we are not a company where you sit on the phone on hold for half an hour. You pick up the phone. 7 seconds is a maximum time that phone can ring. Before it's picked up. Small things make a big difference.
Massively. And actually this kind of leads on to marginal gains, the 1%, and I'm massive on that. I mean, I'm a cyclist as well, and really a lot of that became famous with David Brailsford, who was the cycling. He was, when it was Team Sky, he was the head, and the Olympic, with the Olympics and the cycling doing so well. And the concept there, and most people, a lot of people would have heard of this now, is just sort of 1% here and there. So, for example, in 100 days, if you improve 1%, then you've made 100% improvement, rather than going for a 20% gain and doing a couple of those in a year. Well, that's a lot less, and it's a lot harder, and it can be overwhelming. And that is, again, the idea of testing things, of trying things, but also it's like, can we do that? Yeah, we can buy those China cups and get that done really quickly, really easy. But then it's later on, we bought the special coffee machine. Then it's later on, actually, someone we hired, that was a coincidence, it was a barista. But then it was actually, what about having a special menu? Well, it looks really nice, and you get to choose your drink, and it's not...
Really? Is that what you've done in the office?
Yeah. So you'll have to come in. And then he comes in and he offers you the menu, and he speaks quite nicely, and he brings it in on a tray sort of up here and all that. I mean, it sounds a bit over the top. It works well. But yeah, and it doesn't just say, coffee or tea. It's what kind of coffee, and about the maybe, the special type of tea, and you can have the San Pellegrino and sparkling water, and you can have a beer, and you can have Prosecco or champagne and what have you. So all of these things change throughout time. We've got music in the waiting area. So first of all, actually, what we did was, my wife's interior designer as well, was designed a waiting area.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't really have one. So there's a really nice area. And then again, it's just like throughout. So then we put in Alexa there was some really nice music. So, sophisticated, relaxing music. Put some really nice pictures up on the wall. Some of them are, like my dad was quoted in many years ago as a funny story in one of the financial papers, and things like that, things that are themed. And so throughout time, we've recently framed something else. So just constantly making these small changes and getting those easy wins is massive, and it's so important. And yeah, I agree that, and I'm, again, as I said, a big fan of Rory Sutherland, is that we tend to over-optimize things, and actually we're human, we're emotional, a lot of it, and again, about finance is psychological, actually, not the numbers.
Yeah.
And so if you can so what I want, and what we're kind of achieving, and we're still going in this direction, is people don't want to leave the office, and people want to come in, because that's what we are. We're not the online version of things. We can do a Teams, and we do. But not that long ago, I had a couple of clients who came in, and I had to go, but then they're standing talking with the rest of the team and the support team, and they were there, and then sort of half an hour later, they're still in the office talking to them, and I was like, wow, this is what we want, right? Yeah. They just enjoy coming in, and I have a great relationship, but they also have a great relationship with the team. So just making that real experience.
But that's the differentiator, isn't it? Because we've moved so much stuff online these days, but in reality, deep down, we prefer human connection. And when you're managing somebody's personal finances, that's not something to be taken lightly. And so they want to be able to trust you. They want to be able to look in the whites of your eyes, literally, and say, like, do I trust this person, that when the shit hits the fan, or that this person's going to look after my finances? Because for most people, making that journey, which involves setting up a financial plan, investing that money, and they have to make that transfer, or they move it from where it's always been to the new place, that's one of the most costly, in their head, like the biggest sum of money, financial decisions they will ever make. Yeah. And so you have to be able to trust that person. But and that's, I don't know where like the industry sits in terms of like how we've evolved technologically. I'm somebody like you who prefers all client meetings to be in person. I hate Teams meetings, actually, but I would be very upset if in the future we got to a position where like we were guiding people to like put their details into a chatbot, for example, or like an AI person, because it just isn't. That's not how you build trust. That's not how you build relationships. But a lot of the stuff that we do in e-commerce, obviously, like people are just transactional buying online. But I hope that never changes with financial advice.
I don't think it will. I mean, the complexity of finances. Look, there are always going to be a fraction of people that will do it themselves and want to do it online. Fine, but most people want human connection, and I think there is this big concern about tech and AI and this lack of connection and for our industry, for example. But people will always, we're humans, want human connection.
Yeah.
And if you can give them that, then you're going to set yourself apart from others. And that's why making all these real efforts and also what it also does with where we are today and where things are going is present massive opportunities. I'll give you an example. We drop leaflets. So we've done since about August, September last year, about 25,000. We get loads of inquiries from them.
Fuck. It's like,
so simple,
I
old
this
school.
with
If you talk to a modern person about that in marketing, they might laugh in your face.
Yeah.
Well, actually, not many others are doing it, and people, it's something you just pick up, and you have to look at it, even if you throw it in a bin.
Yeah.
And then you get another one.
Because if you see something online within 10 seconds, often what you just saw has disappeared from your brain.
Yeah.
If you get a leaflet, I was having this conversation with somebody in our Guildford office recently, and he was like, "We know all the most expensive roads around here. Just put something through the door."
You can tell me this after, yeah.
And I was like, "That is like it's just simple."
Yeah.
But he's got a dog. He's got a dog walking and dog boarding business. So he went around knocking on doors when he first started the business. He had to be familiar with the people when he went around, local to the area. We've got a dog sitting business. If you have pets, etc., here's my details. And he was like, "Why don't we do that?" But actually, like our firm invests a lot of money into online.
Yeah.
But actually, what's wrong with literally like piece of paper?
Yeah.
And a lovely leaflet goes through the door.
It's about thinking differently, right? So we've got to this point now with emails and with some online stuff where you just ignore it. And there's not to say there's no place for that, but some of the older school things, like I'll give you another example. Like I actually now I got Kindle and moved away from books, but now I'm sort of going back to books as well. Kindle has its place and I use it, but actually I much prefer having a book in my hands. And then that also gives you, like when you pick up our leaflet, it's got a special finish.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? Or it catches your eye, right? You can't give that experience when it's in an email, when it's online. So it's about trying to think differently. What are others not doing? And again, what can we try? It might not work. And then you work out, why is it not working? Is it because our leaflet's rubbish? Is it, the general thing with a leaflet, if you've got a leaflet, even if it's not a very good one, it will probably work. Certainly for us, for example, so our original ones weren't great and we keep looking to improve them. So you're getting like the 80%, right? It's just them making the tweaks. So yeah, I think it's so important just to try and think outside the box. And sometimes it's stuff that's almost right in front of you that you never noticed.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel on this one. No. This has been tried and tested for hundreds of years. Like we're just going back to what particularly we've spoken about this quite a lot today, which is this the older generation who have the wealth or have the owners of the businesses, but they are the sorts of people who do prefer old school ways of communicating.
Yeah.
Do you actually think that that we are prepared? And I say we, like that could be our generation, it could be the parents' generation, but prepared for this big transfer of wealth that's going to happen in the next, say, 20 years? Before
I answer that question, I just want to go back to something we were just talking about in terms of, for example, with the leaflet thing, is it's very easy, and we've been talking about trying out new things, to keep trying all these things and then say, well, that's not working. For example, with the leaflets, if I remember once I went around my local road when I was self-employed and dropped a load of leaflets about me. I got no inquiries. I was doing it wrong. It's part of a bigger package. Like we're known in the local area, etc. And I wasn't doing enough, right? You can see thousands. And by the way, if something works, this is the other thing I just wanted to point out. Do more of it. So we were doing leaflets. We weren't doing that much. And I was like, well, we just need to do more. Like, can we do more? And then I keep saying I had to find someone to do it. And I said, can you do more? And they kept saying, can you do more? And then I'm thinking, we need an extra person to do it.
Yeah.
So double down on what's working. You want to keep your 80% on what we know is working, or whatever the percentage is, but then try out the other bits on the periphery. Whereas if you're trying too much, you're doing none of them properly, you don't really know what's working. So I think that's really important. To your question around a lot of wealth sits with older people, and is it are we prepared for it? And I'd say absolutely not. I don't think these people with the money are prepared for it. I don't think people that are going to inherit the money are prepared for it.
But they're the ones who've got to pay the bill.
Yeah, and
if
a
there's
lot
an
of
inheritance tax bill, it's the kids, the beneficiaries that pay it, right?
yeah,
So
and who knows? Do you know how to be an executor of a will?
I've never done that before.
No,
No?
and you might be one. I don't know if you know. So you know, that's even just knowing that you are, and then what is involved with that job, and it's not a particularly fun job either. And look, this is where something like a really good financial planner would come into, you know, adding a lot of value, because, and I've done this with families where we just help them pass the money on really efficiently. We take, and you know, this is when you're going through a horrible period. Yeah, we're not the executors or anything of the will, but at least, you know, passing money on efficiently and things like that. And again, you know, because there is this wealth transfer, you've got a couple of elements to this. So you've got the fact that there's a lot of people have an inheritance tax problem. Next year, pensions are coming into the estate. So suddenly, I was speaking to a client yesterday where, as of today, basically they've just got a house that's worth about 1.8 million, and then they've got a few pensions which are worth a bit. But other than that, they don't have loads of money. So it's kind of locked away.
Yeah.
He said to me, when I joined you, I didn't have that much money and I've done really well. So this is not someone who we would call super rich, right? Yes,
He's
they own a very...
asset rich, cash poor kind of person.
Exactly, yeah. And nature of living sort of south and round London is that your property could be worth quite a lot. Yeah, look, they've been quite successful and they're certainly not poor, but where they're going to get that money from to fund that inheritance tax bill, it's really difficult to know. And you know, the children won't have a clue about this or how to manage it. He when I was speaking to him, he was quite shocked at the numbers, you know. So about 400,000 now. Fast forward just over a year, it's going to be over 1 million.
Yeah, of
And
course,
so
because
it's like,
pensions
how
come
do...
into your estate, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, when the pension comes into the estate. And then, so the beneficiaries as well. And there's a concern from people passing on money of, is this money going to be squandered? What will they know what to do with it? I mean, imagine, you know, you've got no experience of having any money, you've never managed money, and suddenly you inherit 400,000, 500,000, even 100 or 200. What do you do with it?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will squander it. So yeah, I think we're totally unprepared. I mean, there's some great options out there. And one thing, you know, this relates to business owners, but you don't even have to be a business owner, and things like business relief that mean you don't have to pay inheritance tax on that money. And I sit down with business owners and they don't even know about it. I've got a client who came on board recently. The business is probably worth about 6 million. They had no idea about business relief and the fact that if by qualifying for that, there's no, you get an amount of money is not subject to inheritance tax. And they even had an advisor, but the advisor was older school and just focused on their pensions. There was so much they hadn't dealt with, and they hadn't thought about the son works in a business. And then that's where we're having these conversations, wider conversations about, have you thought about MBOs? Like, that's not my area of expertise, but these are routes you want to look down, and this is how I can help. And then with the pension element, inheritance tax planning there as well. So that there's so much that needs to be done. It is a complex area, but there is so much that can also be done about it.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of people potentially overestimate how much inheritance tax they would have to pay. Quite a lot of people actually in the UK won't have to pay. It's a very sensitive topic, isn't it? Because it always comes up in like political debates, like changes to inheritance tax. It won't actually impact the majority of people with your nil rate bands and your primary residence. But I think it's emotionally everyone thinks about it, that they're going to have to pay something. But there are going to be a lot of people who will, particularly as you say, like if you're living in those sort of surrounding areas of London, property alone is actually going to, you know, start filling up the cup effectively, and anything else you've got in your personal name is going to fall into your estate and your pensions now as well. But so, yeah, I mean, I have conversations with my friends, and they're not having conversations with their parents, and I feel like the expectation is that it should be led by the parents. But actually, like you say, if you're the executor of the will and you're the beneficiary,
Yeah.
you should probably want
Yeah.
to find out
Yeah, definitely.
where the different pensions are, like
Definitely.
what the assets are worth and all this sort of stuff, because you're going to have to deal with it during this really, really
Yeah.
challenging time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've actually got a particular client where he's a client and so his parents, and he was helping his dad, and unfortunately he passed away not very long ago. He was in really good health, but he was in his 80s, and suddenly it just happened. And the fact that he was so heavily involved and knew everything about the parents' finances means that he's been able to look after that in a really challenging time, and we can help him and his family as well. As you say, I think, look, if you know you're an executive of a will, or you're signing something to see a trustee of something, ask what this is all about,
Yeah.
is what I'd say, because you don't want to sign up for something. First of all, what is it? If you're signing anything, you should know what you're doing. I know if it's family, but definitely understand it, because the worst thing is finding out later, and also making it later and not knowing what to do. But the other thing is if you can, as someone passing on money, make it very clear upfront to the beneficiaries what they should expect or not, because the fallout can often be where people's expectations are different. You might have a number of children, and for some reason you're leaving one more than the other, or they've got more children, your children have got more children, so grandchildren, and you're just saying, I'm just splitting it equally between the grandchildren. If you just make your wishes and desires very clear, then and also it allows you to have those conversations. It's not easy though, and that's probably even more so in England, because we're very sort of reserved about our finances, and
It's one of my biggest issues, actually. We just don't talk
yeah,
about it enough.
yeah, and I think it is a massive issue. I remember my wife. So my wife's Italian. She not that I know necessarily how Italians are so much for money, but she asked someone something like, how much is your house worth, and one of the other friends was like, oh, you can't ask that question. And it's like, to be fair, why not? What are we here to hide? She wasn't doing it in a judgmental way. I think she was just, I can't remember why she asked, but it wasn't about being judgmental. But we always feel that we're maybe in our culture being judged. And again, it goes back to the psychology of money, success. Whereas when you're actually just more open about things, it just leads to much more happiness, much more clarity and transparency, and that always leads to better results. Whereas when things are hidden, we're not sure, something comes out of the woodwork that people weren't expecting.
What's the best piece of financial business advice that you've actually personally received?
There are probably a couple of things. One thing which I came across really recently was, in terms of business, get someone in your business who's already done what you're trying to do, and get them now, as soon as possible. Actually, the words I heard were as soon as fucking possible. So, yeah, that's really, really important, because otherwise you're fumbling around, testing things out. And yeah, you might get there, but it's just going to take you way longer. And life and business is all about time. So that's one really important thing. Another thing is, being a business owner is being like a recruitment agent or something. It's because it is so important. We talked about the clients, but the team, and really it's this revolving thing of just always being ready to take people on. It's more about getting the right person than looking for someone at the right time. So if someone comes along, even though you're not looking for them, take them, because it's so hard to find good people and people that fit. So there are a couple of things. Financially, yeah, I think, look, there are some real basic things that people just don't do and aren't aware of, and some of them people would think silly. Sometimes I think we overcomplicate things. Like, one very basic thing is just don't spend more than you earn or have coming in. It's because so many people put things on credit cards and loans and debts, and we buy houses with mortgages, but don't stack yourself up with debt. And the thing is we live in a world where it's just made to want you to buy everything. So it's really hard. And then you've got social media, and the social media saying, buy that, you need this. And, I hear people say, oh, I need this and I need that. Do you need it? Actually, it's not going to make you any happier. So being very conscious about where you're spending your money. And then this leads to getting to that first £100,000 is so important. And people say, oh, you don't need to worry about saving money and buying coffees and all the small things. Well, yeah, it does. And certainly until you get that 100K, yeah, look, you're not going to get rich by not buying a couple of coffees every week. We know that. But if you can get to the 100,000, you're getting towards some goals here. And then to give you an example, so if you had 100,000, you contribute £1,000 per month. I know for a lot of people that would be a lot of money. And you contribute, so for over 21 and a half years, that money will be worth 1 million, and you will have contributed 358,000. Wow. So if it's growing 7% per annum, so in our industry, it's not that difficult to achieve 7% per annum. You've got a decent investment. So if you build up some savings and invest it sensibly, and build some discipline. So a couple of things with this. I mean, the discipline of doing it, but also putting things on autopilot. So I'm a big fan of regular contributions because then you don't need to think about it anymore. And then if you get that pay rise, increase at least by that percentage the contributions into the investments. What else? And then you get that compounding effect with that over time. And anything else, again, like if you cancel a subscription somewhere, if you notice you're wasting money and you don't need it, redirect it into those investments.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So rather than just dropping it into your bank account,
Yeah.
actually put it into, because the future value of that $7.99 or whatever the subscription is that you've just cancelled, it seems like a small amount of money, but the future value of that over time is remarkable.
Yeah. And people, you just wouldn't realize that unless you sit down and worked it out. So this is so important, and it's about having, therefore you don't leave it to chance, so it is about having discipline, but actually you don't then need it because it's automated. And we live in a time where that's so easy to do. You just set up a direct debit or alter it, and then it's going in. So you don't get that extra money to then be able to think, oh, I'm going to buy that thing that I keep getting pulled into because it's so hard. And then it will just take off. And, I've seen it with myself, like probably over the last roughly 5 years, maybe a bit more of, I was struggling in terms of saving, bought a house, family, young kids, what have you. I say struggling, I've never been on the breadline, I can't complain. But in terms of trying to really build some personal wealth. And then, once I got to that certain figure, around the 100 grand, it actually became so much easier. And it then becomes, also you get to a point in your life, if you do achieve some success, where, again, I just contribute regularly into ISAs.
So you practice what you preach.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, sometimes I have reflected, I'm like, wow, I've been recommending stuff. I'm not doing myself quick. I better sort myself out, right? I mean, the thing about being a business owner as well is, and even when I'm self-employed, is you come to the end of your year and maybe have a look at how you're doing, what you feel comfortable with. But I always have in my mind, and now is like my minimum is use mine and my wife's ISA contributions and maximize my pension contributions. If I'm doing that, then if you think 20,000 into ISAs each, that's 40 grand, 60 grand into pension. It doesn't take that long to have quite a lot of personal wealth, and you're being really tax efficient.
Do you think that some business owners just aren't doing this?
Most aren't.
Most aren't.
Most aren't, in my experience, and certainly maximizing. We're projected to be in the highest tax burden since World War II, right? So it's so important. And as a business owner as well, it's become less and less favorable from a tax perspective. So you really...
When you say you mean by extracting money out of your business into your personal name?
Yeah, so you think historically, you could put way more into pensions. Dividend taxes have massively gone up. I can't even remember. There used to be quite a big allowance of tax-free dividends that you could take.
Okay. Corporation tax as well.
Corporation tax, obviously, the other one, has gone up quite significantly as well. So suddenly, they've kind of squeezed everything.
Yeah.
Like where before we were much more incentivized from a tax perspective to be a business owner, that's been taken away, and they've slowly moved it towards being more like an employee, even though you've taken on the risk, etc.
That's an interesting point. So they've actually gradually converged business owner with employee over time.
Yeah, and that's very purposeful. Personally, I think that's totally unfair in that you look, when you're a business owner, you take way more stress on, you way more risk. It's too heavily stacked, in my opinion, in the other favour. That being said, look, I'm so excited about the opportunities out there at the moment. But what this does lead to is take advantage of those generous benefits that are out there. Like we're saying, some of the ISA things, some of the pensions. There are other things, business relief, we mentioned. But there's so many avenues that you can go down. And the other thing is that it's not always about not paying tax, because people sometimes get a real bee in their bonnet about paying any tax. It's just about paying less tax sometimes. I've had people that don't take a pension, because a defined benefit pension, so where it just pays you an income, because I don't want to get taxed. And I said, well, what's happening if you don't take it? And we look at it. They just don't get the pension. They don't get any more. They just don't. I was like, you better get taxed on something than nothing. So it's okay to be taxed as long as it works in your favor, and where we can reduce it. Yeah.
That's crazy. How has your sort of attitude towards success and ambition changed over time?
Yeah. So again, relating it partly to I've some probably partly immature ignorance, was very money focused in my earlier years, and look, there's still an element of me that's like that. But again, I just know that having another, and I've seen as I took over the business, in theory, you're worth maybe millions, that it's not, nothing changed. And also, as we've been talking about, that's an asset. It's not even in my bank. But even if it was, what actually changes? No one else really cares about it. We all tend to think we're center of the world. Not that. Even if you're super famous, not that many people care about you. And in a generation or two, people won't probably even know who you are. So, because we mark potentially the number as success. I think for me now, success is more about trying to enjoy my time, connecting with people. So, even within the business, like actually enjoying the time with the team, with the staff, and then with the clients, and working with clients I enjoy working with. I'm not going to be a fit for everyone. Not everyone's going to be fit for me. And that's fine. Being okay with that as well. Whereas before I'd really scrap for business. So in terms of success, I would say it's about an ambition, building something that is impactful, and enjoying the moment and the journey. Because again, you can get fixated on getting to a certain place for a certain number, but what happens when you get there? Nothing changes. Yes, I mean, you get a little bit of a buzz for a short time, but actually most of your time spent here. So enjoy that piece. And so for me, yeah, success is, and also being able to say no to things, being able to enjoy time with family or loved ones, whoever they are for you. So yeah, I think it's a very complex area, right? Again, it's human psychology, and it always amazes me that we've been around for so long, and yet we know so little about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And we're all fumbling through it throughout our lives.
It's a good point. They say that the brain is like the least studied thing. We can't understand it, and everyone's completely different.
Yeah.
But we have these societal expectations that have been put upon us.
Yeah.
And a lot of them these days are about money. But money, you need money, right? Like London, we live on the periphery of London, or I live in London, but it's an expensive place.
Yeah.
I was chatting to the big issue guy yesterday, and he was like, how much do you pay for your rent? And I told him, and he was like, fucking hell. He's like, how do you afford that? And it's like, sometimes when you say the number, you're like, I don't know, how do I afford that? Like, it's genuine, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, that's your baseline. That's just your accommodation.
Yeah.
And so you need money in order to have just the basic lifestyle that you and then anything else on top.
Yeah.
And now you're being sort of bombarded from every angle these days. Like if it's holidays, if it's things online, if it's you want to go out to places, like restaurants are really expensive, and all of a sudden you just see your money like disappearing.
Yeah. I think it's a really important point about the brain as well, in that we all know, at least conceptually, that we should probably train our body physically.
Yeah, of course.
Whether you're doing it or not is another question, but we all know that's a great idea. But actually, how many of us and how much are we taught about training your brain and your mindset? Because, as you say, when you grow up in a society or a culture, you're almost like brainwashed into thinking, I need to buy a house and have a mortgage, right? Well, you don't actually. I need to have a massive wedding and spend 30 grand. Well, you don't. That's a choice. And it's, it's very difficult because it's ingrained in us, and it can be within our families and the people around us, which is also why it's so important to have good people around you and people that think in a way that is positive, really. So, but I'm really big, and I talk about sort of as if the brain is a muscle itself. You can train it. We're there's so much, again, content out there about neuroscience and how actually your brain's way more adaptable than people ever realized. And I do things like I meditate and again just trying to realize how I'm thinking. So this leads on to another point, that when you're negative, and if you think about media, right, how they grab attention as being negative, and as humans, and probably naturally us being the people alive, because we've moved away from, back in the day, that lion that was going to eat us, or whatever the danger is today is not necessarily the animal for most of us. And so there's an element of us all having that negativity within us, but actually the brain doesn't work properly when you're negative. So there've been studies on this, when you're positive, your cognitive flexibility is much higher, your problem solving is much higher. And you can train this, even if you wake up every day feeling quite negative. It happens to me quite regularly, but I try and, train myself to be mindful of that. And also,
how do you train yourself to do that?
A lot of it's meditation. I am a Buddhist as well, so I listen to a lot of teachings, a lot of readings. I've always been into philosophy anyway. So it's learning about these things. It's reading up about it. I mean, I'll give you a silly example. I say it's silly, but I think it's really important. And actually, one of my Buddhist teachers talks about it. Before I came in here and I met you, I went in the toilet, but I was looking in the mirror and I was smiling. And it made me feel better. And I know, and every day I try, when I look in the mirror, to smile. And it makes you happier. And in that makes you feel better. And suddenly, you feel more relaxed, you feel more positive, and you feel good. Right. And look, there are times you're not going to feel great, and that's okay as well. And learning to accept that as well. But again, it's so complicated, being human and emotions and things like that.
But it is complicated, but there are some things that you could do that just make it easier. Like I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but I've got a little dog. So every day he has to go outside. Yeah. But going out first thing in the morning, going for a walk. Yeah. Taking for like a 45 minutes to an hour walk. Surprising that sausage dogs actually require that much walking. But
yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are very active. At least my one is. But like this morning, for example, I was voice noting Julia. She was about to jump on the train, but I was like, it feels like the first day of spring. I'm out. It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm with the dog. We're walking through the park. The sun's up. The birds are chirping. Yeah. Like what a way to start your day. Yeah. Most people start their day commuting to work, whether that's by train, whether that's by car, sat in traffic, squeeze onto a tube. That is not a way to make yourself happy. No. So how can you just build, we've spoken about habits in this, financial habits. Yeah. How can you build habits around your mindset and your daily habits that just actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you? You don't have to overcomplicate this stuff.
Not so. Yeah. A few things on this. Again, first of all, I'd start off with marginal gains. So don't necessarily, and I can be a bit extreme like this, like I'm going to go full whack into this thing, right? But for most people and for most of us, it ends up not being sustainable. things like for the first maybe hour of the day, don't look at your mobile phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Everyone says this, but no one does it.
I do it generally. I've every now and again have a slip up, but or there might be a reason I feel I need to check it. But actually, and I notice I do it, and also now I'm aware when I use my phone of me getting that feeling of like I don't feel great. I'm too much on my phone, and
Yeah.
or I'll give you a really good example of my kids when they're talking because they ask so many questions. You don't have kids, do you?
No, yeah, no.
And yeah, they ask so many questions, and it's tireless, and if you're distracted on your phone, it becomes really stressful.
Okay.
So what I do, especially at the weekend, and I try and do is put it somewhere where it's out of reach.
Yeah.
Because again, it's this thing of they're addictive. They're made to make you glued to them. All the apps, these are made by like gambling companies and things.
I actually I actually heard this on a podcast recently that they described your phone as constantly talking to you.
Yeah.
So you don't realize it.
Yeah.
But my phone's over there, for example. But
Yeah.
You have this just like unconscious desire to pick it up, and it's like it's talking to you. Hey, don't forget about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still here. Want to pick me up now?
Yeah.
And that is insane when you actually reframe it in a different way, because it isn't physically talking to you, but you know from the number of times that you pick it up that it's basically like told you to do it.
Yeah.
There's
exactly.
something inside your brain that is telling you to do that.
And again, there are like small things you do. Like my phone's here, I've turned it upside down because I know if I see something pop up, it's going to distract me from our conversation. I'm not going to be fully present. That's going to then I'm not going to feel great. So having little things like I'm going to put my phone just out of reach, because then you've got to make an effort, and then you're like, oh no. Whereas when it's just here, you're in it.
That's a good point, isn't it?
And look, I use my phone too much, but I don't use it a lot as many other people. You don't have to give yourself a hard time about it. But I think this is a real issue today. Talking about a lot of young people being unhappy, unable to socialize. I don't let my kids, my son's only 2, have a device. I will keep that going for as long as I can.
We grew up in the generation where like you play outside on your bike and play football and stuff like that. Like we were outdoors as kids.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point earlier about being out in nature, I realized recently, what I try and do in the morning is spend a little bit of time with the kids. And for example, I pick my daughter up who's a bit younger and get her ready, what have you. And then I'll go outside often, and I realise I stopped doing this and spend a bit of time outside just doing a bit of stretching. I'm getting a bit older, I need to stretch, I've got injuries. But the other day I'd realised I hadn't done this for a while, and I just heard the birds chirping. I was like, oh, I feel really good. And I don't live like right in the countryside or anything. This morning, similarly, I did that, and the sun was out, and I had that feeling, and it's just like this feeling of wow, it feels nice. We can feel spring coming. You're not gonna. It's less gross feeling, more refined than the mobile phone or something, or the big win, but it's more sustainable as a result. So going back to your very early question on what can we do, I would say just have some few rules, like I'm not going to touch my phone for an hour, or if you've got to do it, just do that one thing and then off. Be present with people when you're with them. If you're at, connecting with people, talking, put your phone away. Dinner table, no devices, meditate. And by the way, you don't have to sit down and do an hour, 2 hours meditating. It can be 5 minutes. It can be, and have a habit of like, I'll do it first thing in the morning, at lunchtime, whenever it is that works for you, so that, and again, you put it on autopilot. So yeah, I'm massive about habits and compounding. And what inevitably happens with that, and I've found, is that as I build that habit of, say, meditating, I want to do it for longer, because then I'm seeing the benefits. Then I'm becoming more mindful, and actually feel more peaceful. Then I'm becoming more productive. And so you want to do it. Whereas if I set off with, right, I'm going to sit down and do an hour's meditation, and you've never meditated, you can drive yourself mad. You don't know what to do. For some people, they might be lucky, it might be fine. But if you just say, I'm going to do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, whatever you feel is achievable, that's better than doing nothing, and at a specific time. So I'd say a mixture of things like not using your phone, and then also with a mixture of things like meditating, you will then become mindful of when you're getting drawn into your phone. having to periods where you put it out of reach and things like that, and being outside, being in nature, going for walks and exercising. I'd say if you're doing those things, and I mean, finally eating healthily, that's massive, and you feel so much better. But also to say that when I was younger, I mean, phones obviously have come on a lot more. They weren't really smartphones probably when I was a lot younger, but
Nokia 3310.
yeah, but I wasn't going outside doing my stretching and getting my sunlight. I think when you're really young, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I do think the phone thing, though, that is for anyone, and especially young people, is really important.
I completely agree, and I've got probably an unhealthy habit, a attraction or whatever, addiction to the phone. Like it's always there, and WhatsApp groups and that sort of stuff. Has there been, sort of final question now because we need to start wrapping up, but has there been a book or like a podcast or something that you've read, listened to that's had quite a dramatic impact on your life?
Yeah, I mean, there have no doubt been a lot of books. But what really springs to mind is The Diary of a CEO and Stephen Bartlett, and actually even more than that, I would say Behind the Diary.
Okay.
Do you know Behind the Diary?
Is it on the YouTube channel? Is that the one, or is it?
Yeah, so it's on. I mean, I follow most of that stuff on YouTube. Yeah, so yeah, they've got Behind the Diary, and what it is. So for any business owners or anyone that's interested in business, I mean, you'd find it interesting from the podcast aspect as well. He explains how he does business, runs business, and gives you these insights. And one of them that I came across recently was that one of getting someone in. He was speaking to another new business owner about getting someone into your business as soon as possible that's done the thing you want to do. And when I heard that, it was like the penny dropped. It's almost like one of those things you probably know, and you're always looking for. I'm always asking people that have already done it, but actually getting them in a position where you can speak to them regularly. So for me, that's had a really big positive impact. I'm not trying to copy anything they're doing necessarily, but you can take bits. It's like everything. I talk about it. Within life, you can learn things from different people. I'll learn things from you, but I'm not going to be you, and I don't want to be you, because if I try and be you, I'm only going to be second best at best. But I still can probably take things and learn them from you, and then mold them into my own. And people can. This is how we learn from each other, and from older people, they can pass things on. So, yeah, I just think it's really important to be open-minded, to try things, but also just to remember to lean into your own way, and remember that. This is crazy, I find as well. We're all unique. Yeah. There's not one person who's exactly like you, and that's your speciality. And as I've got older, I've leaned more into that, and that's being more comfortable with yourself, which is something, when you're younger, I think is harder for most of us, and we want to fit in with other people, right? And but at the end of the day, if you're more yourself, people are going to buy into you. They're going to like you more. You're going to have more meaningful relationships. And sometimes, you know what, it's okay. Someone might not like me. That's okay. You sometimes just have to accept it. Because if you try and please everyone, you're going to please no one.
Yeah. That's Daniel Priestley talks about it in the Key Person of Influence, that you have to focus on you have to ignore 80% and find your 20%, or whatever that number will be.
Yeah.
But you will find your people. Yeah. Because you would not think the same, not have the same habits, not have the same interests, all that sort of stuff as everybody, and therefore not speak in a way that pleases everybody as well. Like the things that I'm into, some people just find incredibly boring. And I'm cool with that. Yeah, because like I will also meet loads of people that find it really interesting. Yeah, and actually, interestingly, a lot of those people end up being in this room.
Yeah. Well, it's like I've found that with our conversations we've had. It's just like. The conversation has been so easy and seamless, and it's just like we're kind of interested, and then we're like, actually, I've got to go. I've got a meeting,
But that's the beauty, isn't it, of when you find those common interests and then you develop friendships. And well, we met on LinkedIn, but I've met a number of people from the podcast, for example, that have gone on to be friends. But when you're in this room and you realise that you've got so many common interests, even the guy the other day I had in who he said that he was reading a book that I don't know anybody that's read that. And I thought I was like the only person that had read it. And he mentions it as one of his favourite books. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. I don't even know, like, it's a random guy called Brad Jacobs who wrote a book called How to Build a $1 Billion Business or something. Right. And he was like, my favourite book. And I was like, that's mental. I don't know anyone else that's read it. So
Yeah.
but anyway, this has been a fantastic conversation. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I would suggest LinkedIn. I post pretty much every day on there. Loads of free content on there. If you can reach out to me if you want, on there too. So have a look at that, have a follow. Then I've got newsletters and things, so you can always ask to sign up to those. But I'd say that would be the best starting point. I've got a YouTube channel and what have you, but not a great deal on there. So yeah, I'd start there. And again, the company website's MLP Wealth, but you'll find, if you find me from standing on LinkedIn, you'll find all of it as
awesome.
well. I'd say.
Good man. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Great conversation.
Cheers.
Thank you.